Hey guys, today I am sharing with you this hot cross buns loaf, or a hot cross loaf as I like to call it. It is, to me, a lot better than a hot cross bun because I think the portion sizes are just perfection. It's soft, it is fluffy. As you can see, there is flavor running through every single bite. I kid you not, it is delicious in every single way. That is for sure. Today, I really want to thank Xmix for providing us with this mixer. And I'm going to be making this loaf, this bread. It is a yeast bread in this mixer. It comes with a paddle attachment, a dough hook for things like pizza dough or bread dough, paddle attachment for cakes, and whisk for, frostings and things like that. I have used this mixer out this last week or so. I have used it a lot, and let me tell you, it is better than the mixer that I have currently. This is a 5-quart mixer, and it holds a lot in there. I managed to make cheesecakes, carrot cake, frosting, cream cheese frosting, and you're gonna see all that in a little bit, but I highly recommend this. If you are thinking about getting a mixer, if you're on the fence about should I even spend the money on a mixer, this is one, it's affordable, it's a great price for what you're getting. The quality is absolutely amazing, and I'm not just saying that because whatever, I really use this mixer, and I think it's actually better than the mixer I have. Like you can see here, I've used it on frostings, cakes, batters, cheesecakes, and this loaf. So I tried it out on all different attachments and all different recipes just to bring this to you. Now, a KitchenAid mixer can run up to like $400. This is a really great price, and right now they are offering 10% off to my viewers if you use the code HOMECOOKING at checkout. I will have their link down below for Amazon. Just use the code HOMECOOKING to get 10% off. I love it. It's beautiful. It's not too big and massive. It has great suction for the cups, so suction cups at the bottom, so it doesn't move around. It really does an amazing job. I hope that I can't stress that enough. It really is, for the price and for everything that you're getting. It really is an amazing mixer. So let's go ahead and make this bread, this dough that we're making. So I'm adding on my paddle attachment here. Now I'm really cheap, and I have always been cheap, and I've always been like, do I need a mixer? I love to knead bread by hand, and I can use my hand mixer. But once I got my original stand mixer, because I bake a lot, trust me, it saves so much time and so much energy. Oh my gosh, I don't know what I would do without my stand mixer at this point in my life. So in a bowl here, I have added in a 1/2 cup of water and a 1/2 cup of whole milk, as well as 3 tablespoons of butter. Use unsalted or salted, it really doesn't matter. I want to pop this in the microwave for about 45 seconds to 1 minute to heat up that water and that milk, and the butter will start to melt down. For my dry ingredients, I'm going to just add some regular all-purpose flour. You can of course use bread flour if you want. I will have all the amounts listed below in the description box for you as well. And then we are going to add in some ground cinnamon. Now the cinnamon and the nutmeg also will be adding in some ground nutmeg. These flavors are really important because they will be running throughout the entire loaf of bread, giving you such amazing flavor in every single bite. I'm also going to add in some salt. And we're just going to mix these dry ingredients together. Make sure all of those dry ingredients are really mixed well together, because you don't want a clump of nutmeg in one bite. You want everything to be evenly distributed throughout the bread. So my milk, water, and butter just came out of the microwave. You want to make sure that your milk mixture and everything, just let it sit for about 1 minute to 2 minutes so it's not too hot before we add our yeast. I tell you, every single time I do a voiceover, the clock is always making some noise. That's okay though. All right, I have some orange extract here. You saw me use it in my last recipe. You really need the flavor of either the orange zest or the orange extract. The price of oranges these days are too expensive for me to buy it just for zesting, so I went ahead and purchased the orange extract. You're gonna need about a half a teaspoon of orange extract and 2 tablespoons of vanilla extract. Yes, 2 tablespoons of vanilla extract, and you really do need that flavor from the orange zest. So either orange zest or the orange extract. I also added in some pure cane sugar. You can of course use regular granulated sugar if you want. I shouldn't say regular because it's actually genetically modified sugar, but you can use granulated sugar if you want. Either way, mix that all around to make sure that sugar kind of gets dissolved in there. I'm trying not to melt my butter down all the way, but if it happens, that's what it is. Doesn't make a big difference. Feel your milk to make sure that it is not too hot before adding in your yeast. It should be very warm to touch. And after just mixing this around really well, I'm just gonna let this sit here to proof my yeast. Now you can use active dry yeast, you can use instant yeast, it really doesn't matter. I always like to proof my yeast regardless to make sure that my yeast is good before going through all this process and you have yeast that is too old. I'm just gonna let this sit here for a little while until I start to see a little bit of bubbles, proofing, and then we're gonna go ahead and add in our eggs. I can see a little bit of bubbles forming, so I'm going to add in 2 large eggs. You can crack your eggs in a separate bowl if you'd like, but I know these eggs are good, so I'm just gonna go ahead and crack 2 large eggs. And this recipe is so simple because we're pretty much just gonna dump all this into the bowl. So we have our dry ingredients here, and all I'm gonna do is take my wet ingredients and just make a well in the center of my dry ingredients and pour it right into that. Make sure and get all of the sugar and scrape the bottom of the bowl to make sure everything gets in there, because sometimes the sugar can settle at the bottom. And this is why having a stand mixer to mix your dough, to knead dough, is such a huge help, especially when making a dough like this or even my pizza dough, where it can get a little bit sticky. You don't want to add too much flour because you don't want a dry dough. And this can do it all in the mixer for you, and you don't have to make a big mess on your hands and counter. But I highly recommend. It is great, guys. It's great. Trust, it's made my life a whole lot easier coming from someone who's extremely cheap and frugal and was like, I like to knead bread by hand. I can do this. I don't mind. But anyways, so we're going to go ahead and mix this. On this Xmix mixer, it says speeds 1 to 2 for dough hooks. So I have some currants here, and I'm going to link below where I got my currants. If you don't have currants, just go ahead and use raisins. I also have some of this candied fruit here. I will link below as well if I can find the links for these things where I got them. I'm going to be using this as well. This is optional if you don't have it, but it does add a really nice kind of flavor to it. I don't like to add too much of it. Oh, my voice today, I tell you. So I'm just letting this mix. Now, with all mixers, I just want to make sure and get all that flour off the sides. So I'm going to come in here, turn my mixer off, and just scrape all the sides to make sure all that flour is getting incorporated. Now that we've scraped the sides off and everything is coming together beautifully. Now again, this is a sort of a sticky dough. You don't want a too dry dough because your bread's just going to be too dry. So you want a nice moist bread. So this has come together beautifully here. I'm going to just let it go for about maybe 30 seconds. And then I'm going to start adding in my fruit. I'm going to be adding in my currants, my mixed candied fruit as well as my raisins. Now the reason why I like to use half currants and half raisins is because currants have such an amazing flavor. I can't even describe it to you. It is tangy, and with the sweetness of everything else and the flavors, it's just perfection. Okay, it is perfection. Now if you don't have currants, of course just use all raisins. But I really recommend trying the currants. Now, currants can be a bit pricey. Okay, can be a bit pricey. But because I make currants roll all the time, and I make sweet bread and all these different things, I usually have currants on hand. So I go ahead and do that. Now my candied fruit here, I removed all of the big chunks of cherries from it because I didn't want that in the bread. If you want that, go ahead. But I did not want to have big pockets of fruit in the loaf. So I removed it from it just to have everything be nice and even, the size of the raisins and everything to be evenly, around the same size. And all I'm going to do is just add a little bit more flour to this, and the reason is I want this flour to help coat the raisins and everything so it sticks really well, and also our dough needs a tiny little bit of flour. I will have all the amounts listed below in the description box, so don't you worry. And we're just going to mix this now for another 2 to 3 minutes until it comes together and all of those fruits are mixed in. Again, this is a very kind of sticky dough, so if you are doing this by hand, you want to knead it quite quickly. You don't want to knead slowly. You don't want to take your time with doing this. And you can also spray your counter with a little bit of nonstick cooking spray, or brush it with a little tiny bit of oil or butter to help you, but that can be a little bit messy. So but just knead it quickly if you want to do it by hand. All right, so we can see that all of the fruits and everything like that looks great. It's all mixed in as best as possible. There's no more fruits on the side or anything. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take my mixer off. And clean off our dough hook. Now see, it's not too much of a sticky dough, but it is a little sticky because it's going to be a nice moist bread. It's not going to be a dry bread. So I'm just going to get this and scrape it all off the bottom. Now you have a couple options here. You can spray this all around with nonstick cooking spray if you want to, which will be perfectly fine. I am going to just dust a little bit, about 2 tablespoons of flour all around it, and then just like coat it all around. So you can do either the nonstick cooking spray or the flour. Either one will work perfectly fine. I'm going to make sure that it's all coated, including the sides of my mixer bowl, and I want this to rise till it's double in size. It's going to reach around right there in my bowl or so, but I want it to really rise and double or even triple in size. We want to give this some nice time to rise and rest. So I'm going to cover this. This is an enriched dough, so it's going to take a little longer than a regular dough. It's going to take about maybe 1.5 hours to 2 hours. If you have a really warm area, it might take a little bit shorter, but just keep an eye on it. You don't really have to. Just leave it in the corner, let it do its thing, and you go do what you gotta do, okay? And then we'll come back to this in about 2 hours or so. So I got my handy dandy loaf pan here. This loaf pan has been through a lot, as you can see from the corners, with a spray. Yes, I'm spraying some avocado oil spray on this. You can use whatever nonstick cooking spray you have. What I have is avocado oil, and I like to use that because it's just more natural. So yes, now we're gonna go ahead and get our dough that has been sitting for about 2 hours. And it is really lovely and really risen in size. And oh my goodness, I love dough. I love dough. I love to eat the bread, but I love to work with the dough too, because when you see how it just works, and it's just beautiful, beautiful thing. I'm showing you a close-up here of, you can see the little bits of cinnamon and nutmeg running through the dough, which is so beautiful. And not only that, the dough smells amazing. It smells amazing because of all the flavors in there. Fantastic. I'm going to plop my dough out on the counter. Again, it is a little bit of a sticky dough, so if you find you need a little extra flour, go ahead. If you sprayed nonstick cooking spray on this, it's going to be a little bit easier to work with. I just sometimes don't like to waste my avocado spray on it, so that's just me. Either I'm going to flatten this out till it's about maybe a half of an inch thick, into a nice, as even as possible rectangle. We're going to take one side and fold it in the inside, and we're going to take the next side and also fold it in the inside. Take the two ends and tuck it in. And seal it with your fingers. Now I'm going to take my dough and roll it to the other side. Now I'm going to take each end. I really loved how the fruits just made like this little swirl in the center there. But you're going to take each end and you're going to tuck it under and push your dough upwards. I hope you can see what I did there. I just took each end and I turned it under on itself. And then I just lifted the dough a little bit and just puffed it up. We're going to take our loaf pan that I've sprayed, and we're just going to plop this into our loaf pan. Again, it is a little bit sticky of a dough, so if you do need a little bit of flour, go ahead and use it. I just try to work with it as best as I can without adding any extra flour. Now this does have to do a second rise because it is a loaf, so we are going to cover this up with some plastic wrap and let it sit again for maybe another hour. It won't take as long this time around, but it'll take about maybe another hour until it rises above your loaf pan. Now onto making our crust. I have some flour and I'm going to add some water to a bowl and I'm going to mix this together. Now this is how a traditional hot cross bun is made, with a flour and water mixture. A lot of people have now just modernized it to using a powdered sugar mixture. If that's what you want to do, go ahead and do that. That will have to be done after the loaf is baked. However, I'm doing it the traditional way and I'm making a flour and water mixture. Just added flour, water to a bowl, mix it until it's smooth. I'm going to add it to a piping bag, and when the loaf is, before it goes into the oven, we're going to pipe on our cross on the loaf. You want to make sure your oven is nice and preheated to 375 degrees. Adding in my mixture. I didn't make too much of the mixture because it is just one loaf, so you don't need a whole lot. So here's my loaf. It's been about an hour or so. It has risen above my loaf pan. Now I could have let this rise a little bit more, but I was pressed for time this day, so I just pulled it out. But it has risen above my loaf pan, so I was like, that's good enough for me. I'm going to cut a little tiny snip off the top, just about a quarter of an inch up the top of your piping bag, and I'm just going to give it a gentle push and kind of let gravity do the rest. I don't want to push on this to make too big of a glob of the water and flour mixture for the cross, but I'm just kind of letting gravity do its thing, making one long line down the center. And then I'm going to turn my pan and do another line. Now, if you want to make, if you want to do this with the powdered sugar, you can make lots of lines in it if you want to do that. I'm going to be brushing this with a powdered sugar glaze at the end, so you don't even need that because you will still be getting that amazing flavor. I'm going to clean off the ends here as best as I can because that will just become really hard in the oven. And again, my oven is preheated to 375 degrees. And I just wanted to show you a close-up here of how beautiful that dough is. You could see the cinnamon and the nutmeg running through it. And it just, oh my goodness, it is amazing, by the way. Just by the way. So here we go. In our bowl here, I have some powdered sugar. I also added in a little splash of vanilla. Now, I like to go heavy on my vanilla, but right now we want to be a little bit more, you know. So I just added a little tiny splash. I also added in some milk to make this thinner, and I also did add in some water towards the end to make it a little bit thinner, on the thinner side, so it doesn't leave too much of a thick coating on top. As soon as this comes out the oven, I am going to brush it with some butter. You want to make sure and just brush the top with some butter. So this bakes for 35 to 40 minutes, in case I didn't mention that, which I don't think it is. So it bakes for 35 to 40 minutes. After brushing with some butter, I'm going to go ahead and spread our glaze on top. Just spread it all around. Be generous with that glaze, okay? Be generous with the glaze, because it's going to give it a really nice sweet flavor on the top of it. Now, before we don't want to just let this sit, we want to let this steam. And if you've ever seen my my loaf bread that I make with just regular bread, I cover my loaf when it comes out the oven. Of course, be careful, this will be hot, but the steam will start to steam it, and it will start to soften up the top of your loaf. So go ahead and cover it up with foil and let it steam maybe for about like 30 minutes or so, until you're ready to remove it from your pan. And there you have it. I mean, it's delicious. It's perfect. The top is going to be nice and soft because you covered it up with foil. I'm going to just plop this over here into a plate, and we're just going to slice into it. I mean, this is so great for breakfast, guys. Like, it's so good. We put some jam on it, like for my girls, and it's so delicious. I'll tell you, it's so much better than a hot cross bun for me, because a hot cross bun can be kind of heavy. It could be a lot for one sitting. So here I'm brushing it again with some extra more of that glaze. I did add some water to thin it down a little bit, as well as I wanted it to have that glossy look. And we're just going to slice into this. Again, I think it's so much better than a hot cross bun, because you just get these like perfectly portioned slices where you can brush it with whatever kind of jam you use. We used the strawberry, some strawberry jam, and it was delicious. It is really soft. It is a fluffy bread. It's got amazing flavor. I can go on and try as much adjectives as I can to describe it, but you have to try it yourself, because it is delicious. It is a perfect time of year to make this, and it is just an amazing little treat for breakfast. Like, I love it. I love it, okay? I wish I could eat more of it, but I'm trying to watch my calories right now. But either way, it's delicious, guys. You can see how soft and fluffy it is. It's perfect, great flavor, amazing all around. Don't forget to check out Xmix. I will have their link down below, and use the code home cooking to get 10% off of it. They may already have a coupon on there. You may be able to combine it. Go ahead and check it out. It is a really great stand mixer. It is a great size. It's not this big bulky thing. It's amazing. It does a really good job. I've really tried it all the way down with all different recipes, and it is worth it. I hope that you guys enjoy it. If you try this recipe, let me know if you enjoyed it. Now, see you guys next time. Bye-bye.